So for those who might be wondering, we will have a recording of today's event so that you can share it with your colleagues later. And also there is closed captioning available. We want our events to be as inclusive as possible. So Wendy, who's a colleague of mine, and I will be in the chat to support you throughout today's call. And before I drop, what I'd love to do is get some feedback from those of you on Zoom about an important poll. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll for you today. We would love to know, because the book is called The Career Game Loop, about your relationship with gaming. So we're all gamers in some capacity. So when it comes to gaming, where do you land? Gaming is a part of my life and how I approach my career. I understand the gamer mindset and how it maps to my career. I'm interested in how gaming concepts relate to careers and growth. So if you could take a moment to give us your feedback, I will share those results in just a moment. Jackson and Larry, you guys want to take a minute to say hi?
Larry,
Jackson, after you.
after me. Sounds great. Everybody, welcome on in. My name is Jackson. I'm a senior community manager at Unity, and I'm responsible for all of the live stream content. So whether you're tuning in here in the Zoom webinar, welcome, greetings, lovely to meet you. Or if you are hanging out on the Twitch and YouTube live streams, great to see you all again. This will be a different format, but I'm very excited to get you guys this knowledge, this information, and the insight of these lovely and talented people in the room here. Larry.
Thank you, Jackson. First of all, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to participate in the conversation and answer your questions, everyone. My name is Larry Hryb. I'm the director of community at Unity. I've been here for about 8 months now. I work with Jackson and Jessica and the rest of the amazing team at Unity. Prior to that, I was at Microsoft and Xbox for 23 years. So I'm a fossil of the internet. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing some of my wisdom and maybe share some things that I've learned on my career to help you kind of unlock some great paths accordingly. So with that said, let's get to Jessica. Do you want to introduce yourself, or how are we going to do
Let's
this?
hold on one second.
Hold on one second.
I want to share these poll results, and then I'm going to hand things over to you. So it looks like 52% of the folks on today's call are interested in how gaming concepts relate to careers and growth. 37% of you say that gaming is a part of your life and how you approach your career. And about 11% say, I understand the gamer mindset and how it maps to my career. So thanks for sharing your insights, and we welcome your questions and comments throughout the day in the chat.
Absolutely.
All right.
And with
So
that,
exciting.
And with that, we can get things started here. Jessica, Larry, great to sit down and chat with you. As I mentioned earlier, to be able to kind of pick your brains and understand and learn from your experiences, I think is going to be a very, very exciting thing. Again, whether you're watching in the Zoom webinar or on the Twitch and YouTube streams, we have opportunities for you all to get a free copy of the book. We'll make sure to be giving that information to you. It is currently in the Twitch and YouTube chats here, and we'll give you information for pre-ordering as well. And with that, we're going to give you a little bit more insight into what you would be pre-ordering or getting a free copy of. So let's dive right in. Jessica, we're going to get started with a question for you here. Speaking broadly of the career game loop, can you just tell us a little bit about the inspiration and the journey behind writing this book?
Thanks so much, Jackson. Really, my inspiration is all of you. I have loved seeing in the chat where everyone is from all over the world. Just a little bit of background on myself. I began my career a few decades ago, and similar to many of you, I was raised with this belief that if you just work really hard in school, maybe you go to university, you'll end up with your dream job and live happily ever after. That was not the truth for me. It wasn't the truth for most people. And it's even less so now, as I've observed. I've spent my career actually focusing on this intersection of learning and earning. And about halfway through, I realized that people who were gaming just did an unbelievable job of navigating through today's economy. We discovered that sort of the mindset of a gamer really helped with the adaptability that was required. And we also realized that almost every 3 to 4 years on average, we were transitioning into entirely new jobs that we hadn't even gone to school for yet. And there wasn't really a playbook out there. There wasn't one for me or for any of us on our team. And so after almost a decade of upskilling millions of people into the gaming industry, half of who ended up not continuing in the gaming industry, but went on to incredibly successful careers in all these other industries, that we should, as a collective with you, our creators, with game players around the world, we should actually bring this work to life in a book. And that's where we are today.
And I think that's incredible. And like you said, being able to kind of look into the chat and see where everyone's coming in from around the world, different walks of life, different life experiences, and kind of being able to distill all of that information and so many stories into the book is an absolutely incredible thing. I want to turn our attention over here to Larry as well. Larry, you draw these parallels between career advancement, career development, and gaming. Can
Yeah.
you kind of explain a little bit more about how adopting a gamer's mindset, such as learning from failure and or leveraging power-ups, can help individuals build these resilient careers?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the question, Jackson. I'm so thrilled to be here with everybody. So shout out to everybody on Twitch and YouTube, or if you're watching this on VOD. You know, when I look at gaming, and again, I've been in the games industry for almost 30 years. You know, playing a video game, whether it's an RPG, a role-playing game, or, you know, solitaire, there's a strategy to win. And that's what you're trying to do in your careers. You're trying to win. And winning, it means different things to different people. But the reality is it's about planning and, more importantly, understanding the game. And this game is your career. So how do you go through and how do you level up like an RPG? Unfortunately, we don't have cheat guides or anything like that, except for this book, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You know, it's not like you can go online and go, oh, I want to go to GameSpot and download a cheat for how to play this game. You kind of have to figure it out yourself. And every one of us is on a different journey to do that. But what you can do is some of the things you've learned in the game or learned that games have taught you, you can really apply to real life. In other words, ask a lot of questions, take these side paths, do the side quests, ask, you know, go up and talk to the bosses or interact with the folks that you perhaps normally wouldn't interact with. And that will move your career forward. And what you're doing is you're building, you know, for those of us that have played RPGs, role-playing games where you have to upskill, you know, Jessica talked about that a moment ago. You have to constantly learn things and you unlock new abilities. That's what happens in your career. You're unlocking new abilities. You're unlocking the ability to understand how to put together that PowerPoint or how to draft that perfect email or how to return that phone call or how to do the interview or how to fill out a resume. These are all elements in your RPG arsenal that you are building and that are going to get better and better and better. So when we talk about, and Jessica's done an amazing job, I was fortunate enough to write the foreword to the book. You know, she's done an amazing job going through the book with her, she and the team to help you, guide you do this. And again, it's such a simple concept that Jessica finally put pen to paper and said, hey, treat your career like a game. There is no God mode in your career. Well, for very few people there are, but there's no God mode to unlock everything to fast track to the end. But more importantly, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey of your career and where it will take you. I've got a ton of stuff to talk about, Jackson, but I don't want to stump too much here.
No, Larry, thank you for sharing so far. I got to say, again, working underneath Larry, I have learned an incredible amount. There's so much knowledge and experience in this room that if you guys are paying attention to it, I'm sure there's plenty for you to take away here. Before we move on, it's worth mentioning that the free book offer, as numerous people have pointed out as well, and Becky and Wendy are reminding me too, is available for U.S. residents only. It will only ship to the U.S. However, there will be obviously a full launch of this book. You will be able to get access to it wherever you are in the world, as well as, I believe, and Jessica, maybe you have this answer definitively, a digital copy for people down the line as well. So this will be available to everybody. The free offer today is for U.S. Students specifically. So just to keep our lines of communication as clear as possible. Jessica, turning our attention back to you a little bit here. You highlight the core career loop as a central concept. It's in the title of the book as well. Could you walk us through its 4 phases?
Absolutely. So when we kind of took a step back and looked at this 3 to 4 year journey that was happening, and thinking about all of these gamers doing an incredible job navigating it, oftentimes unconsciously, we realized that it was pretty analogous to what you have in any game, not even just video games, but card games, board games, which is a core game loop. For those of you who don't know what a core game loop is, the almost 2/3 of you who don't have gaming as a core part of your life, that is really the experience you have throughout almost any game. If you're playing Uno, it's when you're dealing cards and putting down the same colors and numbers. That's that really repetitive, exciting part of the game that keeps you deeply engaged. If you think about that as your career, we thought of it as really a core career loop. And there's essentially 4 stages of every one of those jobs you have throughout your career. The first is choosing your quest. What's the problem that you really want to solve? How does it really align with your own interests and values and your own potential? What fires you up in the morning is really the key question for that first part of choosing your quest. Then you've got to level up. And most of us don't have the time or sometimes the financial ability to go back and get that traditional degree to kind of reskill into something totally different. So, how do we actually create our own tutorials? How do we have the right mindset to be able to put together online courses or mentors or projects that kind of get us into that training mode for that new career? That third step is the holy grail. How do we close that job opportunity? And I think the key thing that we learned in all of our conversations is that it's very strategic. It's not this kind of broad, let me just throw 200 resumes into the world because data shows that only gets you one job offer back. Rather, how do you really focus on your community? How do you network into that job? How do you tell your own story in your own game and really negotiate for that ultimate level up? And then finally, you've been successful in that job for the last couple of years, just like in any sort of modding game. How do you actually start job crafting? Either adjusting the current job you have into something new by taking on new roles and new areas that your company or you need to take on, or sometimes just hopping to a new opportunity. So those are the 4 stages, and you just keep repeating them throughout your career. And those are the skills that you really need to learn to master the job market of today.
I have to say, hearing it kind of laid out like this, it tickles my brain as someone who's played games my entire life. And it's very interesting to me, as we saw in the poll at the beginning of the stream, the number of people that are not necessarily lifelong gamers, and us being able to use this analogy that's so inherently familiar to us to help others kind of illustrate this point, I think is just a fantastic thing. And with that, we're going to swing things back around to Larry here. The Career Game Loop offers strategies for a diverse audience, from new graduates to seasoned professionals, helping them navigate the evolving workplace. In a constantly changing economy, what practical steps can individuals take to future-proof their careers, and what common challenges do all professionals face in adapting to this dynamic landscape?
Got to process that question.
Yeah,
That's a heck of a question.
It came out of my mouth, and I'm still processing it.
Well, you're gonna see some things in this book that we're gonna talk about. We talk about strengthening durable skills. So in the book, you'll see it emphasizes the importance of the durable or soft skills like adaptability, problem solving, communication, and teamwork, which remain relevant across any industry. It's not just if you want to get a job in the games industry, that's not what this is about. Certainly can help. This is about whatever you're doing. So having those soft skills is really, really critical. And one of the things that I did early on in my career is I said yes to everything. There's no such thing as that's not my job or that's beneath me. And even Jackson and Jessica, you know this. I have a mantra that I'm never going to ask anybody to do something I would not do. So I have done everything. When I was in broadcasting, I climbed the tower and screwed in the light bulbs. So that was not fun. So really it's about strengthening the durable skills. Next, we've got continuous learning and skill development. Now, upskilling, Jessica talked about that a moment ago. It should be a continuous process. Now, the book talks about taking online courses, self-learning, and gaining real-world experience to stay competitive. There's a ton of opportunities out there, both free and otherwise. The internet has unlocked so much opportunity for us to take skills and watch master classes and things online, download podcasts about whatever esoteric topic really, really excites you. So that's the other thing, is really just continue. And I like to do, I have a young daughter, and I talk to them like, hey, we should learn something new every single day. And I still do that at my age. I love learning something new every single day. It could be something small or something big. So continuous learning and skill development, that's critical. Got quite a few here, Jackson, so bear with me.
Hey, I'm ready.
We're going to leverage a community loop. Just, look around your community. Those are your multiplayer buddies. Okay. That's your squad. How can you lean on your squad and your team to help you? And when I look at your squad, not just your friends, but I'm talking mentors, coaches, professors, sponsor, professional networks, anybody. Building those relationships can help. And you should never don't treat relationships like they're transactional, like, oh, what can I do for you? What can you do for me? You want to make it lasting and meaningful for both of you. So if you need to have fewer relationships to make them more meaningful, that's the way I approach it. So that's the other one is leveraging your community loop. Now, flexibility and career reinvention. This is one that is, in video games, if we screw up, we can go back to a save point. It can't really do that in life. But what you can do is you can kind of reinvent yourself. So this is kind of like in an RPG where you're going to re-roll your character and you're going to put more points into, intelligence or skill or physical or intuition or what have you. So with the rapid evolution of industries, you have to be open to career pivots. So you never know where your career is going to take you. The way I like to describe it is you may decide where you want to go. And I've done chats on this. You'll see it all over the internet. But don't decide the exact point you want to be like, this is my dream job. Think of it as, at least in America, we have these things, postal codes or zip codes. You want to be in this right zip code. You may not know the exact street or the right house you want to be in terms of a career, but you know the general area. And that's what you need to focus on. And then as you continue your career, it's going to become more and more obvious. And you're going to get to that street or that neighborhood, and then the street, and then the house, and maybe even the room. So flexibility and career reinvention is really what's critical. Now, you have to use the main gaming mindset for resilience. So in the book, you're going to learn about parallels between gaming strategies and career growth. Emphasize, look, persistence. It's rough out there. And when we go up against a boss in a video game, we just keep going at it. We keep going at it. That's the way you need to treat career. You need to be relentless. You need to be more so because the higher stakes are on the line here. So emphasizing your persistence, your skill mastery, and iterative problem solving. And then finally, we talk about optimized job search tactics. So, when I was growing up, it was like, here's the resume. Let me put it in an envelope, seal the envelope, send it off, and maybe something will happen. Maybe it won't. Nowadays, you can hit a button and apply to like 5,000 companies at once. Maybe that's not the best way, but look, let's talk about effective job hunting. And it requires creating your personal brand. Who are you? What do you stand for? How do you use storytelling to highlight your strengths and negotiate better opportunities? Every one of us has a story. You need to find that story and tease that out. So that's my stump on that one, Jackson. Anything else to add, Jessica? I don't know if I covered everything.
As always, Larry, you were amazing and comprehensive. I would just maybe reiterate that the areas like your network and durable skills or soft skills, you're actually building throughout your entire lifetime. So there's this kind of compound value that happens. And in our society, we often emphasize the job skills or the technical skills. Can you analyze this data? Can you code, this video game? And the reality is these durable skills and soft skills are the skills that are actually going to propel your career and really build you and build the momentum through your lifetime.
It's very interesting hearing you guys talk about all this because it's essentially how my career has grown. But I had to stumble blindly in the dark to figure out all of these things. And now you're telling me it all exists in one convenient book. If I could take it back to my previous self, I might have gotten here a lot sooner. But completely agree. There's so much knowledge, like we said. If you're just joining us, everybody, we were sitting down with Larry Hryb and Jessica Lindl. We're talking about the Career Game Loop, an up-and-coming book. If you are in the US, we will be posting links for you to get a free copy. Otherwise, there are opportunities for you to pre-order this book. And we will be taking some questions towards the end of the show here. So if you have them, whether you're watching the Zoom webinar or on Twitch or YouTube, please drop them in and we'll get them in front of Larry and Jessica towards the end of the show here. And Jessica, drawing from the stories of real people in your book, what are some of the most inspiring examples of individuals overcoming obstacles to create fulfilling careers, and what lessons can others take away from those journeys?
Thanks, Jackson. So, to start with, we actually, as I mentioned, wrote this book as a collective. Our team at Unity, a lot of the gamers and game developers we worked with, and the programs and universities that we work with were a key part of it. So we drew from those stories, but we also drew from over 50 different video games that are highlighted throughout the book and really broken down into what you can learn from those games to apply to your career. Just a few highlights that I have to start with because I'm seeing their names on the chat. Stephen Christian is just an incredible talent. He actually is a great example of failing forward and what failure can bring to your life. He was a huge football star in high school, went on to have multiple offers for a free ride to any university he wanted to go to. About halfway through his college football experience, he ended up in a really debilitating accident that paused, his ambition for a little bit and what he thought his life was going to look like. And he ended up stumbling upon a sign for his school newspaper looking for some animation, an animator, and that jump started his career into VR and XR and AR. Fast forward about a decade later, he's now a medical student who's applying health applications to the VR industry. So, just those moments in life where you think it's all about to fall apart, gamers realize that that's just the beginning of a new adventure. A second call out that I'd love to make is Mark Suter, who we've learned a lot from him. He's on the chat as well. He's a teacher, a high school teacher out there who's really embedded a lot of this work into his high school experiences. So his students know when they graduate how to be networking, and that college is, if they go to college, is just the beginning. And then finally, Veronica Brown is another great mid-career talent who really recognized a lot of challenges that we were facing within our company and essentially transitioned from being a content creator to an information architect just through solving the problems in front of her and modding her career in that last step. But before we move on, Jackson, I have to put you on the spot.
Oh, good. This
Because
isn't in the script.
you also you also have an amazing career journey that was not highlighted in the book because we didn't meet until after we had to turn in the manuscript. So if you're okay with it, would you like to give just a highlight of your
Yeah.
your journey? Thank you.
Yeah, this is a story that's not been told in front of the Unity community audience either. So great, this will be fun. Backtrack all the way to 2010, and I was studying in university. I went to university right out of high school. I was studying environment and business, and then from there switched gears and studied psychology for a brief period of time. Absolutely loved it. And was just kind of burnt out with school, and an opportunity kind of arose. More than anything, I made it for myself, but I got it in my head that I was going to be a professional figure skater with Disney on Ice. Now, you might think to yourself, oh, so you grew up as a figure skater. I did not. I did grow up in Canada. I'm still in Canada. So I grew up playing hockey. Inevitably, it's in our blood. But those are different. I don't know if you know this. Hockey and figure skating, not the same.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a fight break out on the ice at Disney on Ice.
And some people would ask, they were like, once you were there, did you knock people down on the ice? And the answer to that is not on purpose, but it did happen. But I got it in my head that this was going to be what I was going to do, and I wanted to chase it. And through some series of miracle, it happened. And I spent 9 years touring the world with Disney on Ice until the pandemic happened. But looking back at those moments, it really does reign true some of these conversations and these points that you have made. I leveraged a network. I knew people that were already on the show. I talked to them about what I could do to find my way into this career, into this space. I leveled up. I worked really hard. I bought a pair of figure skates and fell down and hurt myself a lot more than I ever did playing hockey, and just learned and grew and continued to develop over the years. So that's how I got into Disney on Ice. 9 years of that. Then the pandemic hit, and it took a little bit of time before I changed gears entirely. And I went back to school. I was working in hospitality management for a little while and decided I wanted to do something I was super passionate about. I was tired of just kind of only being connected to the work that I did. And I knew I wanted to work in the games industry. So it kind of started the loop again. Who did I know? And fortunately, I was working with someone whose father was the head of marketing for Nintendo Canada. And I said, hey, can we sit down and chat about how I could get into the games industry? And through that guidance and advice, kind of dug deeper and looked for different opportunities and learning and growing and connecting, and ended up in the games industry. And then eventually here into Unity a few years later. So thanks for
Thank you,
giving me an
Jackson.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So that's
I'll hear about this later.
no, it's fine. It's great. I'm happy to talk about it. Listen, anytime I'm on a stream with Larry, and I didn't know, Jessica, I needed to loop you into this as well. Anything can happen, and I'm glad for it. I always enjoy it. Throw me a curveball. Let's roll with it. So, I could talk for hours about the many stories that transpired in the middle there, but of course, everyone wants to hear more from the authors. We saw it in the chat in the webinar here as well. So wherever you're tuning in, again, if you have questions, we will be taking those for our guests here in a moment. But kind of drawing everything back to the questions we have here, one of the key points in your book, Jessica, is the idea of lifelong learning. How can individuals effectively integrate continuous learning into their careers?
So I think the key thing, and this actually started off, this is how the whole book began. Wiley Publishing came to us and asked us if we could write a book on the importance of lifelong learning. And we sort of reflected and said, everyone knows that this is not optional. This is a requirement. And there's a bigger book to be written on how all of these lessons from gaming can really be applied. But again, the bottom line is, it's not optional. This is really your cheat code for being relevant, throughout the rest of your career. So a few tips. First is just to think again about building your own tutorial. So if you want to get into being an entrepreneur and starting your own boba shop, how do you actually bring together the skills to understand supply chain management? Really creating a tutorial on these smaller components. One of the key partners for me in this is Joy Havrath, who put together this concept of law of little quests. So break down your learning into really small components, small tutorials, so you can gain momentum by feeling like you're accomplishing them and learning, and they keep building off of each other. The second is just, again, the community is at the heart and soul of the career game loop. So surround yourself with coaches, people who are going to motivate you, hold you accountable, really help you design these tutorials so you know exactly what to learn. And then the third tip is just bring this into your daily life. Maybe once a week you're listening to a podcast, maybe 15 minutes a day you're dedicating to your learning. And once a month you challenge yourself to introduce someone new into your network with a cold call and an informational interview to build your network. So really just kind of this practical approach to having your life continuously be embedded with learning and upskilling in new areas. Anything you want to add, Larry, to that?
No, I mean, you've covered everything. It's just and I kind of talked about this in a question or two ago, which is about the constant learner. There's really no end in sight. I mean, I know people that are 80, 90 years old that still love learning. I mean, that's how you succeed. You crave to learn more. And when we play video games, and I'm pointing at my monitor behind me, we want to learn more. We want to understand, how do I unlock this skill? What do I need to do to do that? So just think about it again with the gamer mindset. When you're playing a game, you're always learning. I didn't know I could do that, and I'm guilty of it as well. Whether it's later in life or later in the game, you're like, oh, I could have done that. Wow. Okay, we have those hit your hand on your forehead moment. So embrace learning, embrace it hard, and just do it every day.
Yeah. And I think for those of you who aren't jumping into a new video game every month, realize that none of these video games have rule books. You don't enter into the experience with a set of rules on how to play the game. You're just thrown into the game. You kind of bump around. You watch on Twitch or, live streams on YouTube or what people are doing. You start asking your friends. You start playing together to figure it out. That is exactly how we upskill throughout our lives.
And to Jessica's point, at the beginning of this session, we talked about how she said that, and I'll paraphrase you, Jessica, is that, you don't go to school, graduate, and get the dream job and live happily ever after. Back in the old days, you would get a manual with a game and you'd go through the manual and look at it. Well, to Jessica's point, that doesn't exist anymore. And it certainly doesn't exist, I like to draw the parallelism back to your career. So you need to go out and push and prod. And look, the most important thing is to fail, because you're going to learn. just keep trying. And you, like Jackson did, you get down and you fall down, you get back up again. And all of a sudden you're now the prince in Disney on Ice.
Literally.
Sometimes a scary monster also, though, right, Larry?
That's right.
And if I can kind of jump off of what you two have shared as well, like learning can come in so many forms, right? Larry, you mentioned kind of this, oh, I could have had this knowledge years ago. Share that with someone else. Now they have access
Yep.
to learning in a space they never expected. It speaks to the value of community. It speaks to the value of kind of working on things together. So
Yep.
if you're going to speak to a community manager about community, it's going to work every single time. So I absolutely love it. We've got another question here, and then I believe we're fast approaching the time where we're going to pull some questions from the chat here. We also have we've been pulling some, so we've got a list ready to go here as
Sweet.
well. There's always time and space for more, so feel free to get those questions in wherever you're watching. But Jessica, you mentioned that thriving doesn't require special privilege or inherited networks, but rather the right tools, a good map, and a sense of adventure. How can individuals identify and equip themselves with these tools and mindset in their own journeys?
There's so much that we wanted to put in this book. So I will actually emphasize in this response that we have a lot of supplemental materials that come with the book itself. You've got a really long workbook that can guide you on that next phase of your career game loop. So you've got a partner with us all along the way. You've also got a community guide if you want to be doing this with other people in your community to hold yourself accountable. And then for those of you out there who are educators or coaches or career guidance support, we've got a coaching guide as well. In addition, we've got a few other templates that can really make this practical for you. One is a learning map. So how do you actually go through the process of taking the next step of what you want to level up on and break it down into that law of little quests, those kind of smaller key components. We've got a portfolio template to just help you bring your story to life. As Larry said, how do you position yourself? How do you even think through that? So the career portfolio template is going to help you think about your positioning. We haven't really gotten into this too much on the call, but one of the biggest areas I think that we learn the most on is how do you actually get that job offer? And as I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, it is incredibly strategic in how you think through it. Sam DeStasso is the key person we highlight in the book who really broke this down for us. He goes through a huge amount of research, informational interviews when he wants to focus on a specific company. He takes all of that data and almost puts it into a hero's journey, a type of what we call a job story outline that helps you really analyze the job and the role that you're going in for. And then again, taking your own personal story and positioning you as the key hero that's really going to save that company or save that problem and save that challenge that you're coming into the role to solve. So all of these are available to you as well, of course, as a virtual career coach that we created with all of our materials on ChatGPT too.
And I think that brings us to slowly transitioning over to our Q&A. Before we get there, we want to show you guys how you can get a hold of your free book here, The Career Game Loop. We will be back on more Unity channels in April to talk more to some of the guests who shared some of their big stories for the book, which is fantastic. Always looking forward to that. But we've, of course, got the free copy here available today for residents of the US. You'll be able to get in there pre-order and have it shipped to you when it releases. And of course, having all of the additional information for pre-order, exclusive content, and yeah, just getting yourself this book, getting a copy as soon as you possibly can. And with that, we'll dive into some of our Q&A here. As a community manager, always excited to bring in opportunities from the community to connect with our guests. So we're going to get things started from Gabriel. Would the equivalent of God mode in this game of life be having lots of connections, financial backing, or a bit of both? I know we mentioned there is no game mode or no God mode necessarily, but could we draw the parallels there? Larry, I know you made the comment about God mode. Do you want to elaborate a little further?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, if you're early on in your career, then God mode is exactly that. It's where you've got perhaps some financial resources where you don't have to worry about certain things. And I've known I was not that fortunate. So I think it's really a combination of that and the connections. Now, I will say this is as your career progresses, if you even if you didn't unlock God mode early on, you will unlock it at some point in your career where you have this incredible network of friends and professional acquaintances that you can lean on and help you. And that's really what's critical. So it's God mode will eventually unlock for you further on in your career, but it's, having it right at the beginning of the game doesn't do anybody any good. You need to learn a little bit.
Yeah, of course. You gotta work your way into it. Bringing in a question from our YouTube community here, Jared Kane Corbet is asking, I was wondering if there was any advice for transitioning from another industry, for me, nonprofit marketing, to move into the gaming space. Even entry level openings seem rare. We talked a lot about how this loop exists in repetition because you can change gears and directions. Is there any kind of general advice that you might have for breaking into gaming specifically?
Yeah, I'll jump in with one of the key people that we profiled in the book is James Stone, who went from an IT specialist to a police officer to a nonprofit person to a game designer and then to a technical manager. I think he was an award-winning photographer in between there as well with the BBC.
Somewhere in the fold.
Yes, exactly. So for Jared, for your question, I think this is really relevant. And just drawing from his experience, it is really turning your passion into your job. So, how are you constantly creating during those off hours of your day job? There's a lot of materials on learn.unity where we've got pathways that you can take entirely for free that end in certifications that make you credible to enter into an entry level position in the gaming industry. And then, in addition to just continuously creating and building and doing stuff, as James likes to say, building your community and your network. We just got off the heels of GDC last week. If you can't make it in person to events, there's also meetups, usually locally, that happen around the world, either for Unity or other gaming meetups. And then obviously tons and tons of virtual communities that happen on Discord, Reddit, YouTube, etc. Larry, what you've got a lot more experience in this area too. Anything to add?
Well, yeah, I'll say this is, the games industry right now is very different from when I joined it 25, 30 years ago. It's obviously much more competitive. I remember when I transitioned from the music industry to the games industry, I remember telling my wife and my family, hey, I'm going to go work in video games. And like, really? Is that going to be bigger than music? I'm like, I think so. So, it's for right now today, though, it's like Jessica said, it's finding those intersection areas. And I love, one of the questions, I believe the question was that nonprofit. Was that the question, Jackson?
They are coming from nonprofit marketing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunity there because nonprofits usually aren't well funded, unfortunately. So there's a lot of opportunities there for you to be scrappy, as we like to say, and do a lot with less. So you're actually in a really interesting position because you're coming from a framework of not many resources. So being able to help and convince an employer like, hey, I'm going to try a lot of different things that aren't going to cost you any money or going to be very inexpensive. That can be very attractive for a lot of folks. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the fact, oh, I'm in a nonprofit, I'm never going to go there. I've worked with people in the industry, in the games industry, that were rocket scientists or agriculturists, it takes all types of people to create the video games that we enjoy every single day. Whether you're a writer, somebody has to write it. Obviously, somebody needs to code it. Somebody needs to make it look good. I've worked with a lot of folks on the Assassin's Creed franchise. That's all about history. They're historians. So there's a lot of different areas that the video game industry requires, and some of them are highly specialized, that may be opportunities for you, even though you're looking at this going, I don't think I could ever do that.
And I kind of want to circle back to something that I'm actually not sure. One of you had mentioned earlier, being able to sell yourself, right? And kind of, Larry, you touched on it a bit, but being able to say, here's my skill set in what I currently do, and here's how I think I can apply it to what you would ask me to do in these opportunities. So kind of having just that understanding of where your skill set lies and where you can make it reapplicable in a different circumstance, I think is a really, really important thing.
And sometimes, Jackson, sometimes your point, you have your skill set of your toolbox of different things that you've been refining over the years in your career. Sometimes you just need to, and this is where your network and your mentors can come in. Sometimes it's just a matter of turning it just a little bit to go, oh, okay, I can see how that's applicable. You know, so don't get too rigid in the ways of looking at things. And that's that's the whole concept of having this great network you can bounce ideas off of and say, hey, I got I have this skill and I'm really good at this. How do we think we can, do you think it's relevant to X, Y, or Z? And they're like, oh, you'd be surprised what areas you could unlock with that type of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Again, just having someone with a different perspective than yours look at and evaluate someone with a level of trust and respect can be an absolute game changer. From Paulina in the webinar asks, how long did it take from having those initial conversations to actually getting into the games industry? Wendy and or Becky, if we have additional clarity, I have a feeling this might have been in relation to me going from figure skater
I was going to
to
say, Jackson, I think you
it's
should answer this
it's
one.
not about me, but I can answer it. I was really fortunate that I think it took about 6 months from the time that I had the initial conversation. And to me, an informational interview was a new concept. I had never heard of it ever. Someone said, "Why don't you have an interview?" I guess it was a lawyer friend that I had, and I guess in the law industry, it is a big thing. Sit down with someone that has the job that you want, ask to take them to coffee, and just ask them a bunch of questions about their job. So I started with that first conversation. At the end of that one, I basically followed up with an additional networking attempt and said, hey, do you have anyone else that you think would be aligned with the work that I'm trying to do that you could introduce me to? The first person passed me to a second person who had a history in games journalism, which was something else that I was interested and passionate about. So just kind of continuing that network opportunity. And fortunately, after about 6 months, I had my first opportunity industry. Now, I'm one person. That is not a big enough sample size to be like, oh, okay, that's the book. That's the playbook now. 6 months is all it's going to take. That's not necessarily going to be the case. I don't want to tell you that will be the situation. But for me specifically, that was how it went.
And I want to build on that a little bit, Jackson, because you chose, you kind of had a natural career progression. I mean, you knew how to skate. Like for me, go to Disney on Ice, I think I'd be an abject failure. But I may be able to do something else with the organ. Maybe not be on the ice. I'm sure I could probably run the lights or something. But also think about it that way is certainly there's always the nice shiny position that we all aspire to, whether it's public facing or it's a high profile position. But there's usually a lot of other positions that are behind the scenes that may be made more appropriate for. Like I'll be up in the rafters shining the spotlight on Jackson as he does this.
Thank you, Larry.
Skating.
You do a great job of it every day anyways. When I got my sorry, go ahead, Jessica. Absolutely.
I was just going to say, I think the third build on this is take the gaming industry to another industry. There's tons of demand right now for Unity developers and artists and gaming coming into industries like automotive and architecture and manufacturing and training and education. So think broadly.
And here's the secret that to build on what Jessica said is usually positions like that, they're a little more stable. Perhaps they pay a little bit more competitively. So it's worth broadening your scope a little bit with your skill set to go, I like video games, but the skills you have in video games are transferable to so many other industries.
Yeah. And like you said, Larry, having aspirations and working around them and finding other opportunities definitely exists. When I got hired into Disney on Ice, I was woefully underqualified. I worked very, very hard to get good at what I did, but I saw an opportunity once I got my foot in the door to take on more PR responsibility and better sell the show because I was a better speaker than I was a skater at the time. So again, just keeping an eye open for those opportunities and being willing to kind of pivot from your initial vision is very, very helpful. A question from Raymond in the webinar as well. I have a question for Larry going back to the topic of integrating learning into a lifelong habit when building your career in the process of working on personal projects, also valuable as a lifelong habit to get into the field or zip code, as you put it in your analogy. How much does a personal sorry, one second here. How much does a personal project add value? I have as someone looking to get into the industry. So how much is the personal drive going to help support your professional drive?
Well, first of all, thanks for the question. It's highly dependent on what the areas are. Like if I were to tell you, hey, I collect stamps. that's a great thing. I love stamp collecting. I don't, but I'm just saying, people are great stamp collectors, but there may be a thread in there that brings me back to my main career. So to be more specific around the question, it absolutely helps, but some of them are more, you can directly draw the line versus some which are a little more esoteric. But the great thing about having these hobbies that are kind of off to the side is they really help you think differently. And that's the key, is you don't want to go always doing the same thing and kind of in the same areas. I'll give you a great example. When I was traveling a lot, um, this is back in the day when you'd go into the newsstand at the airport. I used to go in and buy 3 magazines that I knew nothing about. I would buy Cat Fancy, Guns and Ammo, and Backyards and Fountains. I don't know anything about any of those things, but I would read them because I would find out what was important to those communities, and sometimes they would spark interest in me. Like Fountains led to I have a fascination with swimming pools, and I love designing swimming pools. So you never know where those things will go, but look for the areas of, again, absorbing different things and finding your passion, and then taking that, what are the threads of those passion that can lead back. Don't do it so mechanically, like, oh, that's going to equal this. Because again, as you go through the career, sometimes it'll unlock and all of a sudden be like, that light will go off. And, oh, okay, that makes sense.
We've got another question from the webinar chat here from Dre Ezel saying, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs, more specifically indie developers? The go it alone attitude, the working solo, the creative mind. Any advice for people trying to do it largely themselves out there?
Jessica, I don't know if you want to take this one.
Yeah, we have lots of advice. So stay tuned. I hope you're coming to all of our future live streams as well, because we've got a lot of indie developers talking about their stories. But really, the same core game loop applies if you're an entrepreneur, an indie developer. It's really focusing on what big problem do you want to solve? What message do you want to get out into the world? What do you want to create? What do you want to build? And then moving into how are you gathering those skills continuously and pitching yourself either to funders. Instead of getting that job, you're using those same exact networking skills to be able to get the funding, or even to build your team, to bring on new employees. And one thing that we haven't touched on yet that the book ends with is, what if you're a manager or a CEO of a company? How does this apply to you? And what we really emphasize, and I actually just wrapped a podcast up on this with UC Berkeley, that actually goes live today with their culture podcast, is that you as a CEO or leader or manager are actually the game designer of your company or of your team. You are the one who's designing the look and feel of that game, which is really the culture of how the team works together. You're the one who's putting the incentives and the motivation in place in that game mechanic. So really thinking about yourself as an entrepreneur, an indie developer, as essentially a designer of your company too.
We're seeing more and more questions pour in. Thank you again to everybody, not just for being here, but being engaged, asking questions. And I also see a number of different conversations happening amongst yourselves in the chat. So thank you all for embodying the community spirit that we have here. I believe we've got a comment more from Alana in the webinar as well. It says, as someone who moved from nonprofit to marketing and gaming, I completely agree with Larry's point about showing that you're scrappy. This is a big selling point for all hiring managers. And I think it also circles back and connects to one of the questions pretty directly Jared had asked earlier. So thank you for sharing your experience. Anything you guys want to add on? I know it's not a question, but anything you want to leapfrog off of there?
No, there's and if you're in the chat, you should be reading it, because I'm watching a little bit over here on the side. There's a lot of great stuff going by. So thank you for sharing that, Alana.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question from Vioma. Hopefully I'm getting your name right. Any advice for if a person wants to pursue research and development in game development as a career?
Yeah, I'll jump in here actually, because when I got inspired by all of these young people who were gaming and their ability to navigate careers, I actually did a 180 in my own career and went from ed tech and workforce into video games. And it was a research project. So I worked with ETS and Pearson and Stanford Research Institute, as well as Electronic Arts and Zynga, in this fascinating collaboration and how we look at gaming and the impact that it has on learning. And what I learned is that researchers and game designers have very, very similar skill sets. and really understanding how to design the right experiences to study human behavior, and systems integration and systems thinking. And so, just like we said about 10 minutes ago, thinking about how do you actually bring gaming research to all of these other industries, because it's an incredible platform to really better understand key outcomes and to also drive innovation too.
We've got another question from the Twitch chat in the Unity community. Namaste Geek asking, my question's twofold. Would love to know your take on the career loop for those mid to late career, and bonus experience for anything on doing a career transition, hopefully into games during that point as well. Does the game loop change depending on if you're early in your career or late in your career?
Well, yeah, I'll Jessica, I'll chime in here and then I'll let you pick up the end. You're not in your end game, as we say in video games. You're in mid game, and everything. For those of you that don't know, there's this game called Katamari Damacy, which is basically it's a Japanese game. It's so cute, but you roll a ball and you have to pick up some things that are smaller than you. And then as you roll the ball around the room or around the environment, you pick up larger things. And that's kind of the way your career is. So you're at the point where your Katamari Damacy ball is quite large and you've got a lot of things on it. And you've picked up hopefully a lot of really good habits, so forth. Transitioning mid-career, rebooting your career, as it were, is something that is I've kind of did it a little bit in my early career where I went from music to gaming, but it's always been under the entertainment umbrella. I don't want to pick on Jackson, but would I be good going to be an ice skater? Probably not. But there is value in what you have and what you can bring as an experienced employee and as an experienced contributor, and probably even more so if you're an experienced manager. So I would not get discouraged. I would show and using the game analogy, demonstrate your skills and refine them a little more to show the employer what the value is that you can bring and kind of the different diverse background. Jessica, over to you.
Yeah, agreed. Nothing to add. Plus
Okay.
one.
Plus one. Thumbs. Good. Another question from Albert in the webinar. Thanks for asking. Albert says, any advice for filtering through the noise on the internet? Finding learning paths that are not just trying to sell you a subpar course, networking that adds true value, and not just selling access to a community membership or selling a coaching package. We're actually seeing some of this conversation happening in the YouTube in real time right now as well. How do you know that the resource that you are accessing is actually providing true value and is not lip service? Even in, for example, the experience that you have and have shared here, how do you know?
Can I jump in here, Jessica? Because I want to say something. This is an area that I'm real passionate about because I see so much misinformation on YouTube. Everyone, all of a sudden, because you have a camera and a computer, you can upload. You're an expert. You're probably not. Perhaps you understand things, but are you qualified to teach? So in the US, we've got this great community college program. So there's probably a lot of community colleges, and there's probably something similar in other countries. And I recommend go signing up for those or checking out your local community college. Again, looking at different courses that you could sign up that really, would contribute to your career path and help you grow. And maybe maybe you're going to take welding or something that's off the beaten path. For me, it would be off the beaten path, perhaps not you. So I would really shy away because there's a lot of misinformation, bad information on YouTube from people that frankly aren't qualified to be giving it. So, finding that right balance is really looking at your local education institutions, which tends to be a little bit higher quality. My opinion. Jessica, over to you.
Yeah, I'll take the other side of that opinion.
Yeah.
Which is starting actually with what type of learner are you? Are you the one who just wants to get in there, not read any directions, and start learning by doing?
Which is a classic gamer approach, by the way.
Exactly.
We're not going to read any manual or tips. We're just going to next.
Exactly. Or are you somebody who needs the accountability to be showing up regularly? Then, as Larry said, a local course may be helpful, or some type of online learning cohort may be helpful. But at the end of the day, I would just focus on your community and what they're recommending. That's really where you're going to get the most substantive advice.
And with that, we conclude our time allotted for our community Q&A. So thank
Wow.
you, everybody, for asking them. I know we didn't have an opportunity to get to all of them, but again, thank you for being here, joining us, and sharing your experiences and asking questions. With that, we're going to remind everybody that you can take a look at the resources available here. You can go to careergameloop.com for free exclusive bonus content by pre-ordering the book here. We also have been populating free links in the chat across all of our platforms so that you are able to get a free copy if you, again, have a shipping address in the US. Get in there, pre-order. The book will be available later in April. And thank you so very much, audience, for being here. But then Larry and Jessica, thank you both for being here, sharing your experiences. Jessica, thank you for writing this book. Absolutely incredible resource for people. And just in the brief glimpse of knowledge and information that you've shared here today, I'm very excited to read it myself because I know there will be a wealth of information.
Well, first of all, Jessica, like you said, Jessica, thank you for writing the book. I'll let Jessica wrap up, but I just want to thank everybody that took the time out of their day, wherever you are. It's a rough go out there, so don't go it alone. Find your team, find your group. You've got a lot of great community to lean on, especially right here with this book. So, Jessica, I'll let you wrap it up for us.
Just closing with thanks to you, Jackson and Larry, Wendy and Becky. This was so much fun. And thanks most of all to all of you in our community. Those of you who have been with us all along the way, we've learned so much from you. Those of you who are new to us today, keep following us, keep the conversation going. We're learning so much together. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And with that,
Bye-bye.
we'll sign off. We'll see you guys again soon. Have a great week, everyone.